When Ryan moved with his parents from the city to a quiet rural town, he was anything but happy. Leaving behind his friends, the fast life, and the constant buzz of the city felt like exile. But his father insisted, after retiring, he wanted to spend the rest of his life in their ancestral property, Wellington Manor. The manor was massive, but ancient, centuries old. The walls were damp, cobwebs hung from the ceiling, and the long corridors carried an eerie silence, like time itself had paused. The house had 8 rooms, but one door at the end of the west wing was always locked. No one opened it. No one dared. Ryan asked his mother once, "Mom, why is that door always shut?" She sighed and said quietly, "That door has been locked since before I married your father. Your grandfather used to say, some doors aren't closed by choice. They're sealed by fate." That answer only deepened Ryan's curiosity. He would often stand in front of that door at night, just staring. Sometimes, he could feel a cold draft flowing out from the bottom of the door, as if something inside was breathing. One night, long after everyone had gone to sleep, Ryan heard footsteps echoing in the hallway. He stepped out of his room and froze. The locked door was slightly shaking, as if someone inside was pushing against it. His heart pounded, but the curiosity was stronger than fear. Slowly, he started walking toward the door. As Ryan approached the door, he noticed faint scratches on the wood, deep claw-like marks, old but unmistakable. He reached out and placed his hand on the surface. The wood was ice cold, and a shiver crawled up his spine. He instinctively stepped back, his breath quickening. The next morning, Ryan asked his father, "Dad, have you ever tried opening that locked room at the end of the hall?" His father's face tensed, as if he'd just remembered something he'd tried hard to forget. "That room," he said slowly, "holds an old family secret. Your grandfather locked it. He left a written note saying it should never be opened." "But why?" Ryan insisted. "What's inside?" His father didn't meet his eyes. "I don't know. But your grandfather used to say, some walls carry echoes. If you disturb them, they awaken." Ryan fell silent. But the pull of that mystery grew stronger. Every night, he found himself wandering toward the door, unable to resist. One night, as he crouched near the threshold, he noticed something terrifying: 2 faint red lights, like eyes, blinking from the other side in the pitch-black darkness. He stumbled back in shock, heart pounding in his chest. Was it a trick of the light? A dream? Or was something really staring back at him? The next morning, while rummaging through the dusty attic, Ryan found an old wooden chest. Hidden beneath moth-eaten clothes, he discovered a crumbling leather-bound journal. The cover was faded, but one name was still visible: Edward Wellington, his great-grandfather. As he opened the journal, a musty smell filled the air. The ink was old but still legible. The very first entry made Ryan's skin crawl. "I saw it again last night, the shadow. The face. It walks the walls after midnight, coming from that room. I locked it. But I fear I am too weak to keep it sealed." Ryan flipped through the pages, each filled with torment and regret. His great-grandfather had written of a presence trapped in that room. A spirit tied to a horrific event in the manor's past. He warned that if the door were ever opened again, the only way to seal it shut would be with blood. Ryan closed the journal with trembling hands. Whatever was inside that room, it wasn't just a ghost, it was a curse. That night, Ryan tried to sleep, but the words from the journal echoed in his mind. Sometime after midnight, he heard it again, a voice, soft and distant, calling his name, "Ryan. Ryan. Open the door." He sat upright in bed, terrified. The house was quiet, but the voice was clear. He stepped into the hallway. The locked door was still shut, but now there were whispers seeping through its edges. Was he dreaming? Hallucinating? He stepped closer and pressed his hand to the door again. The whispers stopped immediately. Then suddenly, the door jolted forward from the inside, as if someone had violently slammed it shut after trying to open it. Ryan stumbled back, gasping. His heart raced. This wasn't just a haunting. This was a war between the living and the dead, and he was standing on the fault line. Ryan's nights were no longer peaceful. Every time he closed his eyes, the same dream returned. In it, he was standing before the locked door. He slowly pushed it open, and inside, darkness. Only a single wooden chair sat at the center of the room. And on it, a figure, face hidden in shadows, but with burning red eyes. Each time, the dream ended with the figure standing up and whispering, "You called me. Now don't run away." Ryan would jolt awake, soaked in sweat, gasping for air. One night, after waking from yet another dream, he looked around his room and found a burned piece of cloth lying on the floor, scorched, as if pulled straight from a fire. Had he brought something back from the dream? Desperate for answers, Ryan visited an elderly woman named Mrs. Myrtle, who had once worked in the manor decades ago. Her hands trembled as she poured him tea, her eyes heavy with memory. Ryan leaned in. "Do you know what's behind that locked door?" Her expression darkened. "That room belonged to Eleanor," she whispered. "Your great-grandfather's first wife. She died in a fire. People said it was an accident. But it wasn't." Ryan stared at her. "What happened?" Mrs. Myrtle looked away. "They say she was locked in that room, screaming for help. But the family, they didn't believe her. And she set herself on fire. But she didn't really die, Ryan. Not fully. Her rage stayed. Her sorrow lingered." Ryan's skin crawled. The door wasn't hiding a ghost. It was trapping a fury. That night, Ryan opened the journal again and flipped to the very last entry. The ink was shakier, the letters frantic. "If the door opens again, blood must be spilled. Not just any blood, family blood. She won't rest until she is heard. Until the lies are undone. Until her name is honored, and the truth revealed. She cries for justice. If you ignore her, she will take everything." Ryan dropped the journal. His hands were trembling. This wasn't about a haunting. It was a legacy of guilt. And now, it had come for him. That same night, a power outage blacked out the entire manor. The air grew cold. His mother lit a candle, and the family gathered in the main hall. But something was wrong. His younger sister, Emily, wasn't with them. Panic spread. Ryan raced through the manor, calling her name. As he turned the corner to the west wing, his blood ran cold. Emily's slippers were lying right in front of the locked door, and fresh blood smeared the lower edge of the wood. He pounded on the door. "Emily! Can you hear me?" A faint voice whispered from inside. "Help me! She's taking me!" Ryan screamed. His father recited scripture at the door, trying to force it open. But the door refused to move, as if held shut by a force older and stronger than wood and nails. And then, silence. Emily was gone. Emily's disappearance shook the entire family to its core. Ryan's mother couldn't stop crying. His father paced the floors in rage and confusion. The police were called, but there was no trace, no evidence of forced entry, no broken locks, nothing but a few faint bloodstains and a missing child. Ryan knew the truth. He had awakened something. The dreams, the journal, the voice, all pointed to one undeniable fact. Emily had been taken by Eleanor's spirit, the one trapped behind that cursed door. That night, Ryan sat in front of the locked door again, alone in the hallway. He whispered, "If you're there, I want to understand. Show me what you want." And the hallway grew cold. Ryan fell asleep near the door. And once again, he found himself in that dream. But this time, the room was alive, walls flickering with firelight, blood running down the cracks, and a figure sitting calmly in the center. Eleanor. She rose slowly, her face scorched, but her eyes clear with sorrow. "You know my pain now," she whispered. "But that isn't enough. The world still calls me a curse. A madwoman. A murderer. I want my name restored. I want peace." Ryan trembled. "Tell me how." Eleanor pointed to a corner of the room where a burned diary lay. "They took my truth. Find it. Read it. Then speak it to the world. Until you do, this door stays open. And I will keep taking. Then everything went dark. The next day, desperate for help, Ryan visited Reverend Matthews, an old priest known for his knowledge of spiritual disturbances. The Reverend listened carefully to everything: Eleanor, the dreams, the journal, Emily. After a long silence, he said, "Eleanor's soul is caught between vengeance and justice. She doesn't want revenge, she wants her name cleared." Ryan asked, "How do I do that?" "You must uncover the truth she died for," said the Reverend. "And once you do, declare it out loud. In the very room where she burned. She must hear it." Ryan nodded slowly. "And if I fail?" The Reverend's voice turned grave. "Then she will never stop. Your family's bloodline will be erased. One by one." That night, Ryan returned to the door. He brought the old journal, a flashlight, and a printed prayer from the Reverend. He stood before the wood, took a deep breath, and spoke firmly, "I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to listen." The hallway shook gently, then one by one, the locks began to unfasten by themselves. The door creaked, moaned, then slowly opened. The room beyond was cold, filled with the scent of burnt cloth and ash. The walls were blackened. In the corner, just as Eleanor had said, lay a scorched leather book, her personal diary. Ryan stepped inside, and behind him, the door slammed shut. Ryan stood still. The door had slammed shut behind him, trapping him in the cold, dark chamber. His flashlight flickered but stayed on just long enough for him to see the burned furniture, ashes on the floor, and what appeared to be fingernail scratches clawed into the walls. He stepped toward the far corner where Eleanor's charred diary lay untouched on a pedestal of cracked stone. His hands trembled as he picked it up. The cover was mostly burned, but the first few pages had survived: blackened edges, faint ink, and a woman's pain spilling through every line. "They call me cursed. They call me unstable. But I know what I saw. I know what they did. Edward promised he would choose me. Instead, he betrayed me. Locked me here like an animal. Let them silence me, if no one hears me now. Then let my screams echo through generations." Tears welled in Ryan's eyes. Eleanor wasn't a villain, she was silenced, and now, all she wanted was the truth to be heard. The air in the room grew warmer. The ashes shifted, and then, Eleanor's spirit appeared again, her face clearer now, though still marred by fire. Her eyes looked directly at Ryan. This time, there was no hatred, only exhaustion. "I waited so long," she whispered. "All I ever wanted was to be believed." Ryan stepped forward. "I believe you. I'll make them all hear it. You weren't mad. You were betrayed." Eleanor's scorched figure nodded slowly. "Then go. Speak. And when you do, I will set your sister free." Ryan blinked, and suddenly, he was back in the hallway, the diary clutched in his hands. The door behind him had vanished entirely. The room was gone. The next morning, Ryan stood before the gathered townspeople and his own family, holding the burnt diary. His voice rang out across the old chapel where generations of his family had worshipped. "This is Eleanor Wellington's story," he said. "She wasn't cursed. She wasn't mad. She was imprisoned and silenced by those who feared her honesty." He read her final words, letting the pain and injustice echo through the halls. There were gasps, tears, and finally, understanding. Reverend Matthews stepped forward and said solemnly, "The truth has been spoken. Her soul can finally rest." At that moment, the church's back doors burst open with a gust of wind, and in the sunlight stood Emily. Emily looked tired, confused, but unharmed. She walked slowly toward her family, then into her mother's arms. "I was in a dark place," she whispered. "But a woman was there. She held my hand and told me she was sorry I had to suffer for someone else's sins." Ryan knelt beside her. "It's over now. You're safe." Later that evening, Ryan stood where the sealed room once was. There was now only a blank wall. He placed Eleanor's diary in a glass case in the family study with a plaque that read, "Eleanor Wellington, the forgotten truth, the manor was peaceful again, but Ryan would never forget the chilling voice that once whispered through the door. That night, the Wellington Manor felt different. The air was lighter. The shadows didn't seem to linger anymore. But Ryan couldn't sleep. He walked the hallway one last time, pausing at the west wing, where the door had once stood. Now there was only smooth, seamless wall. Not even a crack remained. He touched the spot. It was warm. In his room, he sat by the window, watching the moon rise over the hills. That's when he heard a faint voice, soft, calm, peaceful. "Thank you." He turned sharply. No one was there, but he smiled. It was Eleanor. One final goodbye. Weeks passed. Life slowly returned to normal. Emily recovered and rarely spoke of what had happened. But she never went near the West Wing again. Neither did anyone else. Ryan kept Eleanor's diary protected in the manor study. Visitors came. Historians took interest. The story of Eleanor Wellington, once erased, was now retold with respect. But one day, long after the family had moved on, a small crack appeared in the western wall. No one noticed at first. Late one evening, a curious guest was wandering the hallway, drawn by something unseen. He paused in front of that wall. A soft whisper touched his ear. "You opened the door."